My husband offered me to a fox demon just to save the woman he loved. The true nature of that creature was lecherous and vile. I begged in despair, "Husband, I carry your child, please, don't leave me behind." He shook off my hand, his face cold. "Chu Rua died because of you, Xinyan. One piece of flesh in exchange for her life, it's worth it." My heart turned to ash. Reborn to the day of the bridal toss, I ignored the eager gaze he cast my way. Instead, I turned and threw the embroidered ball at a beggar. Tao Tang waited outside the gates with reddened eyes for 3 days. I tossed the jade pendant he had given me onto the ground and smiled sweetly. "Your so-called devotion is filthier to me than the mud beneath my feet." On the night of the 15th full moon, Tao Tang brewed snow fungus soup and watched as I drank every drop. Before unconsciousness claimed me, I saw his eyes, cold and resolute. When I awoke, I was in the fox demon's den. My husband had delivered me to Taiyin, the fox demon, to save Chu Rua, the woman in his heart. The demon bared its sharp fangs, its body bristling with foul-smelling fur. Its greedy eyes swept over me from head to toe, finally stopping at my abdomen. Its voice was sharp, trembling with excitement. A purine body carrying a pure young child, what a delicacy. Terrified, I clutched at Tao Tang's robe, tears streaming helplessly down my cheeks. "Husband, please take me away. I'm scared." He turned his head aside, ignoring me entirely, while that half-human, half-fox creature drew closer step by step. Terror surged to the top of my skull. I looked at Tao Tang, pleading in agony. "There is a child in my belly, our child. You cannot treat your own flesh and blood like this. Please, don't abandon us." He shoved my hand away, expression indifferent. "The day bandits attacked during your temple visit, Chu Rua risked her life to save you. Yet you acted as if nothing happened and returned home. She died because of you, Xinyan. One piece of flesh in exchange for her life, it's worth it." "No. That's not how it happened." I tried to explain, but my mind was blank, as though something had smothered my memories. I collapsed to the ground, strength draining from my body. Hot tears hit the earth, just like my heart at that moment, plummeting into an endless abyss. Tao Tang took the demon's elixir and left. What awaited me was endless torment. In the final moments before death, as my body was torn apart, I seemed to hear the wailing cries of my child, and the greedy sounds of the fox devouring us both. Tao Tang. Tao Tang. Hate me if you must, but the child is innocent. Why did you have to make the baby a sacrifice? Why? If I could do it all over again, I would never have thrown the bridal ball to you that day. My breath caught. Around me, the world dissolved into a haze of noise. I suddenly opened my eyes. I had truly returned to the day of the bridal toss. I had been reborn. "Miss, look, young Master Tao is over there." Hong Lu, my maid, pointed excitedly into the crowd, nearly bouncing on her toes. I followed her gesture. Tao Tang stood among the onlookers, eyes bright and brimming with determination, as though certain he would be chosen today. Of course he was confident. Months ago, he had approached me at the Jade Hidden Studio under the guise of poetry and painting. Every word he spoke so casually was, in fact, calculated. Even this bridal toss had been arranged with him in mind. But Tao Tang never valued me. He wanted the title of son-in-law to the Grand Academician. His feigned affection had been nothing more than a stepping stone to power. I looked at him with mockery. Among the crowd of suitors, not one was worthy of entrusting my life to. The auspicious hour had come. My mother stood behind me, urging me on. My mood was heavy as my gaze drifted idly, and landed on a beggar crouched by the corner wall. His robe was filthy and threadbare, his long, tangled hair matted with bits of vegetable. He looked utterly wretched. Amid the bustling noise around him, he had tilted back his head and fallen fast asleep. A few times, children darted past, and he instinctively tucked his legs away just in time. Coincidence? At that moment, something slipped from his side, half hidden beneath his elbow. That was... A rush of excitement surged through me. Without hesitation, I hurled the embroidered ball straight at the beggar. His eyes remained shut, yet with one hand he caught it. He even shifted slightly, clutching the ball to his chest before dozing off again, his snores rumbling like thunder. In turning over, the item by his side was now fully exposed. As expected. I pressed my lips together and smiled faintly. I no longer needed to search. The entire gathering fell silent in stunned disbelief. After Hong Lu's sharp gasp, my mother's teacup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Then came the uproar. No one could believe that the dignified daughter of a grand academician had chosen a beggar as her fiancé. The most shocked of all, of course, was Tao Tang. The ever-present smile on his face seemed to crack. He stared at me in utter disbelief, and in his gaze, there was even reproach. What should have been his was now stolen by a beggar. How could he endure it? I met his gaze and gave him a beautiful smile. Tao Tang, the road to power ends for you in this life. When father heard, he was furious and summoned me to the ancestral hall to kneel in punishment. You insisted on holding a bridal toss and claimed you already had someone in your heart. Xin Yan, is that filthy beggar truly the man you love? I bowed my head in silence. I had once been so easily fooled by Tao Tang's polished words, his talent, his manners, his false humility. In my past life, after we married, he had treated me with every appearance of respect and devotion. I even begged father to pull strings and secure him a post as Vice Minister of Rights. But less than a year after being granted his own residence, he brought Chu Ruo into the household. That night, Tao Tang had held me gently, caressing my hair, his voice soft with promises. Chu Ruo is a childhood sister from my hometown. I only brought her here so she could make a living. My wife will always be you. Xin Yan, do you trust me? His words had sounded so sincere, not a hint of deceit. And laughably, I had believed him. Now. I kowtowed deeply, my tone calm and steady. Your unfilial daughter only saw his true face on the day of the bridal toss. In my confusion, I threw the ball to another man. I will resolve this matter myself, father need not worry. Father stared at me, speechless. When our eyes met, he opened his mouth as if to speak but could not form the words. At last, he sighed. My child, a woman's reputation is of utmost importance. I understand. After kneeling for 2 hours, I went to see mother. She had already arranged for the beggar to be brought into our residence to silence gossip. She did not scold me, only sorrowed over the path my marriage might take from here. I soothed her for a while before returning to Hanxiang courtyard. As soon as I stepped through the gates, Hong Lu rushed to meet me, her face full of worry. Miss, young Master Tao has been waiting by the side gate for a long time. He says he won't leave unless he sees you. Ha! What a sticky, clinging mess. If he wishes to wait, let him. When he dies, the Yamen will collect his corpse. Hong Lu hesitated, studying my face, then quietly excused herself and withdrew. I watched her retreating back and sighed softly. 2 days later, Tao Tang was still waiting. Hong Lu, pitying him, described the scene to me, which only made me laugh. If you pity that man so much, shall I arrange a marriage between you and him? How about that? The words had barely left my mouth before Hong Lu dropped to her knees, knocking her head repeatedly against the ground, begging for forgiveness. You've done nothing wrong. I crouched down, lifted her chin, and gazed into her tear-bright, spirited eyes. Remember this, the more handsome a man is, the easier it is for him to deceive you. Don't be foolish enough to become prey waiting to be butchered. Like me. Perhaps my gaze lingered too long, for Hong Lu startled, then nodded repeatedly like a frightened bird. In my previous life, a week before Chu Ruo entered the household, Hong Lu was found dead, strung upside down, her body discovered in a horrifying state. She had been missing for half a month before anyone found her. At that, as I glanced over the jewelry box, my eyes fell upon a hexagonal jade pendant, and irritation surged instantly. It was the token Tao Tang had given me. I picked it up, running my fingers over its surface, then couldn't help but curl my lips into a mocking smile. A cheap piece of street jade, dressed up by his honeyed lies as a family heirloom, and I, a foolish girl in love, had let myself be deceived. Because women like us willingly deceive ourselves. I went to meet Tao Tang. His once neat robes were now crumpled, his figure slumped in dejection. The moment he saw me, dull eyes lit with desperate hope. His numb legs trembled as he stumbled a few steps toward me. Xin Yan, you came. That day, you must have felt unwell, right? That's why you tossed the ball to the wrong person. His voice was hoarse, crafted to tug at pity. He even thoughtfully offered me an excuse, as if to ease my guilt. I looked at his face with icy detachment. The memory of my unborn child rose up again, and disgust twisted deeper within me. I hope you remember your place, sir. Waiting outside the Grand Academician's residence for 3 days so openly, do you wish to ruin my reputation? But, we already made a promise. His cracked lips parted, his head shaking in disbelief. Then, as if recalling something, he added, have you forgotten? We have a token. By now, a crowd had gathered on us. Everyone could hear his words clearly. I let out a cold laugh, snatched the jade from Hong Lu's hands, and hurled it to the ground before Tao Tang. It shattered into countless shards. He stood speechless. My apologies, I said sweetly, it was just a cheap piece of jade. I can compensate you with 20 more just like it. But please, stop having them sent to me. Taking a silk handkerchief, I carefully wiped my hands as though tainted by touching it. My eyes dripped disdain as I smiled prettily and said, your so-called devotion is filthier to me than the mud beneath my feet. For him to shamelessly wait here like this showed he cared nothing for a young lady's reputation. All he feared was that the months he spent weaving lies would be wasted. A man who placed his own gain above all else, he was more worthless than that cheap piece of jade. And so, I saw no reason to show restraint. It was better to settle this matter thoroughly before all present. I, Xin Yan, have nothing to do with this vile man in this life. Tao Tang's body trembled. Xin Yan. Silence, Hong Yu, mother's senior maid, barked sharply. Is the title of a noble young lady something a man like you may utter? Moreover, my lady seldom leaves the house, and even when she does, she rides in a sedan chair. How could she possibly know you? If you continue spouting nonsense, I will have you dragged before the authorities for questioning. Tao Tang's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I stared at his ever-shifting, ashen face with cold indifference. Even a single extra word to him would be an insult to myself. After a tense standoff lasting the time of half a cup of tea, he finally lowered his head and gave a faint, bitter laugh. Then he lifted his eyes to me again, loneliness painted across his face. A noble young lady like you would never involve herself with a poor scholar like me. Of course, that makes sense. How could a pampered daughter, clothed in silk and fed with jade, ever understand the worth of true feelings? A fine performance indeed. If I had not once been mercilessly betrayed by this man, I might almost have believed him. People's hearts always change. If you were truly sincere about marrying me, why would you still be here, making a scene? I dropped my smile and fixed him with a cold, piercing stare. Put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, do you feel no shame speaking those words? His expression froze, then slowly crumpled into gloom. Of course. To someone who treated love as a game, a hint of panic was inevitable. Tao Tang finally left. Desperate to salvage the last shreds of his dignity, he stumbled away under the contemptuous stares of the onlookers. The clown had exited the stage, and the audience naturally dispersed with noise and chatter. Just a poor scholar reaching for wealth and power, only his tricks were too clumsy. He forged a fake jade trinket and passed it off as a treasured heirloom to deceive me. Yet in the end, I would rather choose a beggar than have anything to do with a liar like him. A rare spectacle indeed. My farce would no doubt become a topic of idle gossip across the capital, but I didn't care. The future was still unwritten, and these small obstacles were nothing to me now. After breakfast, I went to see the beggar. Or rather, the reclusive master whom my embroidered ball had struck. Mother had arranged for him to stay in the quiet western wing, sending only a single servant to attend him. She feared that if news spread, malicious tongues would twist the story into scandal. I understood her meaning. Only after a long time, when the bridal toss became old news, could we properly arrange the situation with this man? Father, meanwhile, had become the target of ridicule from his colleagues at court because of this affair. I knew well that what lay ahead in terms of fate and marriage was unpredictable. But what mattered most now was staying alive. In my past life, when the fox demon devoured my spiritual essence, it had said I was a once-in-a-century purine vessel. Even if Tao Tang hadn't brought me to it, it would have come for me regardless. Purine energy was the finest nourishment for cultivating demonic power. And the child I carried, pure young, would have helped it transform in unimaginable ways, unleashing untold evil upon the world. If it came for me in this life, death would be a mercy. Worse still, it might destroy my entire family. My thoughts tangled into a chaotic knot. I clenched my silk handkerchief tight, a heart-wrenching pain gnawing ceaselessly within me. Just then, a cry of pain rang out. I hurried to the western wing and arrived just in time to see a tall, striking man gripping the servant's wrist tightly, his tone sharp and irritated. I was drunk for only 2 days. Why did you wash me clean? Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get this dirty? He actually sounded regretful. The servant begged for forgiveness over and over, and when he saw me, his face crumpled into tears. Miss, please save me. The man turned and frowned the moment he saw me. So, you're the one who had me turned into this. I said nothing, just stared at the hand gripping the servant. He understood and released him, then casually found a large stone to lie down on, looking utterly pleased with himself. A young lady forcing a man into her residence, hardly a good look, is it? His words were a public rebuke, but I did not take offense. After sending the servant and Hong Lu away, I approached and sat down on the stone bench across from him. My voice was solemn. In truth, inviting you into our residence was because I wished to ask you to save the Shin family. His eyes remained closed, his face impassive. My gaze drifted to the 7 coins hanging at his waist. My voice softened into a plea. Master of the 7 coins, known for slaying countless demons, if you live among beggars, surely it must be due to some painful past. But I have no other choice. I beg you to take pity on us. Perhaps I had struck a nerve. He opened his eyes and looked at me, their depths dark and heavy. Do you know why I wander the markets and make myself like this? I shook my head. He smiled, a strange, pained smile. I was once the master of 9 coins. 3 years ago, I accidentally killed my own younger sister. 2 coins shattered instantly. Tell me, how could someone like me possibly save you? How could I not understand the agony of losing a loved one? I gently placed a hand on my still flat lower belly. In my past life, I had been 3 months pregnant before I died. The child had already formed. As the fox demon tore into me, I could feel my baby's pain as it was ripped from my body. Even before birth, that child had already become a part of my heart. Master, you don't understand, I said softly. My life already belongs to the fox demon. It said it would come for me again, and the Shin family won't escape it either. If I become pregnant, devouring both mother and child will aid its cultivation. This demon is cruel. Once its power grows, it will bring disaster upon women and children everywhere. Your sister was also a victim of a demon, I continued, tears burning in my eyes. And children are innocent. I looked at him, and inside I was screaming, breaking apart. The memories of my past life surged again and again before my... Perhaps the hatred in my eyes was too stark, for he stared at me for a long moment before resuming his lazy posture. With a faint frown, he said, "Your fate leans toward extreme indeed, a tonic for a demon's cultivation. But the righteous energy of the capital is strong. Very few demons can even come near this place. How could a sheltered young lady like you have ever been involved with one? It seems that in your previous life, you died steeped in resentment." My gaze flickered, then I laughed softly, almost at ease. "Correct. Rather than calling it a previous life, perhaps it's more accurate to say it was the future of this one." He sat up straight, showing little surprise, only curiosity. "Indeed, there are two similar yet distinct souls within this body." "I believe you. Tell me, what did you go through in that future?" It all sounded absurd, yet being believed felt strangely real. I closed my eyes, and to my own surprise, tears spilled down my cheeks. After wiping them away, I began to recount every detail of my past life to him, bitter, broken pieces of memory laid bare. I didn't know why I trusted him. The morning dew awaited the rising sun. Ripples danced across the porcelain basin as golden carp darted between lotus leaves. He sighed deeply, then rose, brushing the dust from his robe. "Leave this matter to me. You need not fear that the past will repeat itself. And don't call me master." Gone was the lazy air. His eyes were sharp, his voice clear. "My name is Chu Yi. I am from Chuzhou, trained on Mount Longhu. Master of the 7 coins is but a title bestowed by others. I am not even worth a flick of my teacher's fingers." In that moment, the rising sunlight spilled over his face, casting it in a radiant glow. I felt as if a great weight had been lifted from my chest. The next morning, Chu Yi was gone. The servant who attended to him lay on the bed snoring loudly, and only woke after Hong Lu shook him awake. Still groggy, his face soon turned pale with fear and guilt as he stammered toward me. "Miss, this morning after breakfast, Master Chu said he needed to go out." I feared he might flee and tried to stop him, but he raised a hand, and I fainted. He didn't say what for. The servant shook his head, looking thoroughly ashamed. I composed myself and glanced down the room. On the pearwood table, I spotted an old copper coin. I stepped forward and picked it up, holding it tightly in my palm. Only then did my heart settle. No need to worry. He'll come back. Before leaving, I instructed the servant not to report this to Mother. There was no need to trouble her further. Back in my own quarters, I changed into men's clothing and slipped out the back gate, heading toward Wanjin Pavilion. That place held countless rare treasures of the world. Among them, there might be something a fox demon would fear. Time was short, and I didn't know when Chu Yi would return. I had to be prepared. Hong Lu disguised herself as a servant boy and followed me. Since yesterday, she had grown much quieter, perhaps I had frightened her. She was, after all, only 14. Wanjin Pavilion was in one of the most prosperous quarters of the capital. When I arrived, its grand doors were still tightly shut. In the corner by the entrance, an old man sat, slowly drawing on a pipe. I sent Hong Lu to tend to the carriage and approached him myself. The old man lifted his clouded eyes to scrutinize me for a moment before chuckling softly. "Go back. This place is close to you. There is no fate between you and Wanjin Pavilion." "I heard that anyone with silver is welcome here," I said. "I've brought money, how could there be no fate?" The old man inhaled from his pipe, then exhaled a swirl of white smoke that coiled down him like mist, giving him an otherworldly air. "Go," he said. "I do no business with the dead." Shock struck me. I hadn't expected a man who looked so ordinary to see through me so easily. A ripple of respect stirred in my heart. "Elder," I pleaded, "the thing I seek can only be found in Wanjin Pavilion." I took out a stack of silver notes and held them up with both hands. "I only wish to keep living." The old man did not reach for them. Instead, he looked past me for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. Your resentment clings too tightly. You cannot even reach the path of reincarnation. Ah, forget it. He set down his pipe and drew from his robe a triangular talisman, which he handed to me. One day, you will need this. Remember, the body is but a vessel, and it can hold only one soul. Stunned, I accepted it. I was about to voice my thanks, but he was gone. His words echoed in my mind, two souls cannot coexist in one body. One day, one of us must leave. Will it be me? Or the me who still sleeps deep within this flesh? Still turning over the old man's words in my mind, I prepared to leave Wanjin Pavilion. But just as my foot touched the last step, his voice drifted to me once more, distant and weighty. Those who must leave cannot remain, no matter how they wish. Let go of your attachments. You should both seek rebirth soon. I froze mid-step. Both of us. Who else did he mean? Back at the estate, 3 days passed without me setting foot beyond my courtyard. I turned the golden talisman over and over in my hands, yet found nothing unusual about it. Later, I sent someone to inquire and learned that the owner of Wanjin Pavilion was, in fact, a woman, and that the shop had not been closed on the day I went. It seemed the mysterious old man had been waiting for me deliberately. Just then, Hong Lu entered carrying a wooden tray. She set a bowl of snow fungus and lotus seed soup before me. Miss, this is your favorite soup. Madam especially asked the kitchen to prepare it. My hand, still clutching the golden talisman, trembled slightly. At once, I thought of Tao Tang. My brows furrowed, my voice turning cold. I despise this. Take it away, and don't bring it here again. She paused, not daring to question me, and carried the soup out. The day before, I had sent people to investigate, but no word had come back yet. I wanted to know, what was Tao Tang doing now? Knowing what I meant, Hong Lu obediently replied, he has set up a stall selling paintings and calligraphy outside Jade Hidden Studio. Many customers stop by, including daughters of high officials. The daughter of Grand Commandant Lu seems quite taken with him, they've already exchanged tokens. Her voice grew smaller and smaller, until it was barely a whisper. Indeed, this was exactly how he had courted me. Tao Tang, oh Tao Tang, your tricks are rotten, yet they still serve you well. Keep watching him closely. Report any progress immediately. After dismissing Hong Lu, I placed the old coin Chu Yi had left beside the golden talisman. Both objects pulsed with an otherworldly aura. I stared at them so intently that I failed to notice the lengthening shadow stretching across the ceiling beams. Only when a wave of cold dread washed over me from above did I look up, and a chill ran through my blood. There, coiled-aying the beams, was a massive black serpent. Its thick body wound down the wood, its eerie green eyes fixed on me. A blood-red, mucus-coated tongue flickered in and out, as if it might lunge at me any second. I held my breath, every muscle taut, my mind already mapping the quickest escape route. In that tense heartbeat, I bolted for the door. Behind me, a murderous chill sliced through the air. I didn't dare look back. Somewhere in the courtyard was a cache of realgar powder, my only chance. I sprinted toward the hiding spot, grabbed a fistful of sand mixed with the powder, and hurled it over my shoulder, along with the copper coin. A sharp clang rang out. The serpent's head had been struck, and its enormous body twisted in a frenzy. Its tail whipped through the courtyard, smashing everything in its path. A monstrous, mournful wail poured from its mouth, so haunting it was indistinguishable from a ghost's cry. I stumbled back, tripping over a stone and falling hard. The serpent's attention locked onto me, its grotesque face twisting with greed as it stared at me as though I were a succulent piece of meat. The instant it lunged, a streak of white shot across my vision, striking the serpent's head and knocking it aside. I seized the chance and scrambled away. After a few steps, I glanced back. The white figure was gone. What was that? The serpent shook its massive head, then lunged again, jaws wide. But this time, golden talismans flared into being, binding its body. Snake demons deserve nothing but death. His sister had been killed by one. He had risen to fame while still a youth, a prodigy who became the master of 9 coins at a young age, the most talented disciple of Mount Longhu, a hero who slayed demons and protected the innocent, and a thorn in the side of every monster. To avenge its own kind, a serpent demon poisoned and enslaved Chu Ye's younger sister, using her to harm countless people. By the time Chu Yi returned, it was too late. The girl's body was drenched in blood. Standing amidst a sea of corpses, she smiled at him, a twisted, eerie smile. He rushed forward, trying to purge the serpent's venom from her veins, but she seized his peachwood sword and drove it into her own chest. Before death claimed her, her clouded mind cleared for a brief, painful moment. Her face, pale as paper, curved into a faint smile as she rasped. "Brother, at last, Chu Ruo has waited long enough for you to come home." The name hit me like a thunderclap. The teacup slipped from my fingers and shattered on the floor. Chu Ruo. Your sister's name was Chu Ruo. Chu Yi turned his head slightly, sorrow shadowing his expression. Yes. But you must never have met her. She was frail from birth and raised in a distant village far from here. And she died 3 years ago. Perhaps it's just a coincidence of names. I steadied myself, speaking as much to him as to myself. But the face of Chu Ruo rose vividly in my mind, gentle, captivating, with eyes that held a hint of malice. In my past life, Tao Tang had treated her with great tenderness. The servants had whispered that she would soon become the second mistress of the household. Only a man, my stray dog, had despised her, barking madly whenever she approached me. A man was later poisoned to death. And both Chu Ruo and I knew exactly who had done it. Where did you get this? Chu Ye's voice snapped me from my thoughts. He had picked up the golden talisman, staring at it with disbelief. I once saw Chu Ruo with one like this, but she burned it long ago. I recounted the encounter with the mysterious old man. Chu Yi frowned, murmuring incantations and tracing symbols in the air. After a moment, he spoke. This is nothing but a common talisman of protection. I accepted the talisman, repeating his words under my breath. Common. But deep down, I knew it was anything but. Chu Yi yawned. I've been gathering medicinal catalysts all over the city, 3 days without sleep. For the next month, do not disturb me while I refine them. And one more thing. He stepped closer and drew a sigil on my forehead, then handed me a jade green gourd pendant. This charm will keep lesser demons from approaching you. The jade gourd can restrain a powerful demon for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, about 15 minutes. Remember, if you are in danger, find me first. I nodded and placed the pendant around my neck, fingers brushing over its cool surface. Curiosity flickered in my chest. Didn't you crush one of these after capturing the serpent? Ah, that. I buy them wholesale. 5 coins each. Unfortunately, I only have 2 left. He yawned again, looking utterly nonchalant. When I have time, I'll stock up. He spoke of demon-slaying artifacts as casually as if they were trinkets from a market stall. I was both astonished and unsettled. Are all Taoist priests from Mount Longhu this blasé about such things? Time passed in uneasy peace. Half a month later, Hong Lu came rushing in with startling news. Tao Tang had publicly rejected the Grand Commandant's daughter and turned his attention to a young orphan girl. How could Grand Commandant Lu swallow such an insult? It was unbelievable. But when I later saw the girl on the street, I understood why. She was not human. Behind those wide, tearful eyes lay a venomous malice, the same malevolence I had seen in the black serpent that attacked me. I lowered my gaze and wandered toward a nearby sugar figurine stall, pretending to browse. Tao Tang's expression had gone blank, his eyes filled only with that girl, like a clay idol steeped in death. They stopped behind me. The girl's voice was sweet and soft. Brother Tang, I want a sugar figurine too. Yes, yes, I'll buy it for you. I stood still as stone. She drifted closer, and a foul stench swept over my face. Instinctively, I covered my nose and mouth, shifting away, my other hand tightening around the jade gourd. My heart pounded wildly. Still smiling, she picked up a sugar figurine shaped like a young maiden, twirling it delicately between her fingers. You smell so fragrant, sir. Not like powder, but the scent of a woman's body. I had come in men's clothes today, determined to see for myself why Tao Tang was so besotted with this so-called orphan girl. I had not expected to encounter a demon. Perhaps, miss, you've mistaken it. I am a man, how could I possibly smell like a woman? I forced myself to remain calm, willing my body to stand firm before her. If I showed fear now, I might not leave this encounter alive. Is that so? Her lips curved higher, into a smile far too eerie to be human. With a delicate motion, she brushed her fingertip against the head of the sugar figurine. It snapped off with a soft crack. She popped it into her mouth, bloodlust flashing in her eyes. This head is delicious. Then, without another word, she turned and leisurely led Tao Tang away. The tension in my body unraveled all at once. My knees nearly buckled beneath me. Even now, facing a demon, terror still coiled deep within me. If my guess was correct, that woman was the female of the serpent pair Chu Yi had spoken of, the mate of the black serpent he had slain. A serpent pair's lives are intertwined. With the male dead, the female survives only by attaching herself temporarily to a human host. Judging by Tao Tang's dazed expression, he likely did not have long to live. Fortunately, her demonic power had not yet fully recovered. That was the only reason she dared not strike me outright. Otherwise, I would not have escaped unharmed today. After returning to the estate and changing my clothes, I went straight to the western wing. Mother was sitting in the courtyard, sipping tea. My steps slowed. She turned at the sound and looked at me, worry etched into her face. She led me into a side chamber, speaking gently but repeatedly reminding me of the proper boundaries between men and women, advising me not to visit the western wing too often. Because of me, father was still mocked by his peers. He never told me so, fearing it would hurt me. Mother too had been deeply troubled. I understood all of it. And so, even with thousands of grievances bottled in my heart, I said nothing. I didn't want them burdened by the nightmare of demons and spirits. Mother sighed softly. If you truly admire that man, even having him marry into our family would not be impossible. At least then I could see you every day. I said nothing, only leaned silently against her shoulder. The old man's words still echoed in my mind. If I could, I truly wished to remain with my parents longer. On the 20th day, Chu Yi still had not emerged. And strange, chilling incidents were spreading across the capital. Some happened aboard riverboats, some in roadside pavilions, others in abandoned temples on the outskirts. All the dead were youths. Their bodies were stiff, their eyes bulged wide, their limbs twisted grotesquely, as though they had died from sheer terror. The people whispered in fear, "A demon is loose." The uproar shook the capital. The authorities dispatched 6 officials from the Ministry of Justice to investigate. But in a single night, only one returned alive, and his mind was shattered. He kept mumbling the same thing over and over. 81, 81. Soon after, more deaths followed, including the remaining 5 investigators. The total number of victims was exactly 81. Panic swept the city. Even the court was at a loss. They could only post a staggering bounty to hire capable exorcists. The reward lured countless Taoist priests and sorcerers, yet the demon's movements were elusive, no one could find where it lurked. Even at the Grand Academician's estate, 2 strong gatekeepers vanished. They were later found dead near the side alley gate, their palms carved with characters that, when placed together, read, "Midnight. Take your life." I knew this was a message from the serpent demon, meant for me. Every midnight, I lay awake, nerves stretched to the breaking point. Even the rustle. He also taught me how to form the hand seals, his fingers tracing the movements against the paper window. Have you learned it? I clutched the cold porcelain bottle tightly, its chill bringing a strange clarity to my thoughts. Thank you. He grunted in acknowledgement, then his tone turned brisk. You've been sitting idle for a month. It's time I stretched my legs. When I return, I'll bring you a purse made of serpent hide. It seemed Chuyi was going to hunt the remaining serpent, the female. I let out a slow breath. Yet, instead of relief, an inexplicable unease crept deeper into me, like a thick fog obscuring everything ahead. It was a feeling I had known before, and it was never a good sign. My thoughts began to drift. In my mind surfaced a scene, the moment, in my past life, when I had been chased by mountain bandits. Chu Ruo had struck me unconscious and dragged me into a carriage. Just before darkness swallowed me completely, she whispered into my ear. Sister Yen, tell me, if I die, do you think Tao Tang would capture you to trade for me? Let's bet on it. My guess is, yes. Then she ordered the coachman to drive away. A moment later, I heard laughter, a cold, bone-chilling laugh, and after that, nothing. By the time I returned home, the memory of it had vanished from my mind. So that was it. She had been willing to stake her very life just to destroy mine. Utter madness. My thoughts snapped back to the present, and my throat began to itch. I tried to call out for Hong Lu, only to realize that I could not move. Just then, the doors of my chamber burst open, and a swirl of golden mist drifted in, coalescing beside my bed. The mist thickened, twisting into a shape I knew all too well, a greedy silhouette straight from my nightmares. Pure Een body. I've finally found you. It was here. It had come for me. My body trembled violently, fear and hatred crashing over me like a wave. I couldn't move. I could only glare at it with feral loathing. Do you hate me? You should. After I devour you, come find me again in the next life, kaka kaka. The half-human, half-fox abomination reeked of decay. My nightmare was poised to repeat itself. It reached for me, but shrieked as an unseen barrier burned its hand. Chu Ye's protective sigil. I barely exhaled in relief when it snarled, filthy Taoist. I will devour you today. Its jaws stretched wide, and in a single gulp, it swallowed me and the entire bed. A stench so foul it seemed to rot the air itself filled my lungs. Darkness crashed over me. When I awoke, I was back in the fox demon's lair. It had captured 3 wild pheasants and was muttering about breaking Chu Ye's protective charm. With a casual swipe of its claw, one pheasant's head flew clean off before it even had a chance to struggle. Hot, stinking blood splattered across my face, and I gagged violently, retching from the sickening heat and stench. Fortunately, I could move my body. While the demon slaughtered the second bird, I seized the jade gourd and hurled it into the air, chanting the incantation. The gourd swelled in size, sucking the demon into its belly, but instead of shrinking, it floated midair, pulsing with ominous red light. I sprang to my feet, hastily wiping the blood from my face, and bolted out of the fox's den. Barefoot, sharp stones tore into my feet until they bled, but I didn't stop. Above me, storm clouds devoured the sky. Black crows perched on branches, and the forest path stretched endlessly before me. Still, I didn't dare pause. The time a cup of tea bought me was far too short to reach Chuyi. I didn't know how long I ran. At last, the forest broke, and ahead stood a small, weathered cabin, long abandoned, ivy crawling over its fence. The half-open wooden door seemed to beckon me inside. I glanced down at my bloodied feet. Without hesitation, I stepped in. The dim light within revealed thick cobwebs hanging everywhere. By the faint glow that filtered in, I managed to find a lantern and light it. The instant the flame flared, a fox's face appeared across from me. Its slimy tongue slid along its fangs as a terrifying smile curved its lips. Little white rabbit. I've caught you. A shiver ripped down my spine. I stumbled back just as the demon lunged. My body slammed hard against the ground, pain shooting through me, but I had no time to dwell on it. My hands flashed into the seals Chu Yi had taught me. Immediately, more than a dozen wandering souls in the cabin surged forward, forming a barrier before me. The demon was blasted backward. I struggled to my feet, heart pounding, and watched as the spirits tore into the demon's flesh, ripping and gnawing while it howled in agony, yet it could see nothing. So I had been right. Before stepping into that cabin, I had already noticed something was off. A lonely hut deep in the forest was not unusual, but the lush ivy twining along its fence was. A hut hidden beneath towering trees, where sunlight never touched, how could ivy, which thrives on light, flourish there? There was only one answer, it was fake. So I quietly swallowed one of the pills Chu Yi had prepared for me. Once inside, I discovered what I had suspected, the place teemed with spirits, the tormented remnants of young girls murdered by the fox demon. Like me, they had been toys, tricked into believing they'd been rescued, only to walk into this sinister trap and be ripped apart piece by piece. Like a cat toying with a mouse, the demon shattered their bodies and minds before devouring them. It relished hearts that thrashed with terror, savoring the fear pounding through still living flesh. But the heavens are just. Every debt must be repaid. Now, the fox demon was bound, ensnared by the very spirits it had wronged. Its power was sealed, leaving it to shriek venomously. I'll eat you. I'll drain every drop of your essence, flay your skin, grind your bones, and swallow every last piece of you. I picked up a rusted iron blade lying in a corner and stepped forward, planting my foot on its chest. All fear was gone, only hatred remained, the same boundless hatred burning in the spirits around me. Monster, I hissed, voice shaking with fury. The one who deserves to die, is you. Terror flickered in its eyes as I swung. Hot, foul blood splattered across my skirts. I grimaced, then swung again. And again. Dozens of times, long after the creature had stopped breathing. Finally, I smashed the lantern, setting fire to the hut and the corpse within. Forming seals with my hands, I released the spirits. Freed from their vengeance, they dissolved into serene streams of white light and drifted heavenward. I stood outside, watching the flames roar into the night. Yet there was no joy in me. No matter how much revenge I took, what I had lost could never be restored. As I stood there, two lights appeared beside me. Looking down, I saw a man, my loyal dog, and a little girl. She gazed at me silently, a gentle, obedient smile on her young face. Her small mouth moved. Mother. Tears blurred my vision. I fell to my knees and cradled her ephemeral form in my arms. Just for a moment. Just once, let me hold you. My child. Through my tears, I sensed someone approaching through the forest. I lifted my head, and froze in surprise. It was him. By the time the servants found me stumbling down the mountain, they had been searching for quite some time. Hong Lu rushed forward to support me into a small carriage and bring me home. On the way, she told me the demon terrorizing the capital was dead, a massive white serpent, over 10 meters long, had been slain atop the city wall. Its bones were crushed, flesh torn apart, skin flayed from its body. Its organs had vanished without a trace. Tao Tang was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had vanished from the world. Perhaps, he had already been devoured by the serpent demon. I listened in silence. After a while, I asked whether Chu Yi had returned to the West Wing. She shook her head. Most of the servants were still out tonight, and she did not know his whereabouts. For reasons I couldn't explain, an unshakable dread gnawed at me, a feeling that something momentous was about to happen. Back at the estate, I hastily cleaned and dressed my wounds. My mother came to see me, asking why both I and my bed had vanished without a trace. With the fox demon dead, one burden had lifted from my heart, so I recounted the events briefly for her. Even so, she remained deeply worried. But when she learned who Chu Yi truly was, she finally relaxed. A Taoist from Longhu Mountain, in the eyes, not knowing when Chu Yi would return, I waited for him in the west wing. He returned at the third watch of the night. And he brought a woman with him. The silk lamps cast a warm glow over her porcelain skin. Her face was innocent and delicate, her red lips and high nose painting a picture of flawless beauty. I was so stunned I couldn't speak. Chu Ruo. How could it be her? The moment our eyes met, fear flashed through hers. She immediately ducked behind Chu Yi, trembling as she whispered. Brother. Chu Ruo is scared. Chu Yi soothed her gently, then turned to me. This is my younger sister, Chu Ruo. Her heart is positioned differently from ordinary people. That year, she didn't die. Later, she was captured by a serpent demon and forced to seduce men to drain their life force. She suffered terribly all these years. I can't bear to let her suffer any longer. My fingers tightened around the fabric of my sleeve. A memory rose unbidden, Tao Tang bringing Chu Ruo into our home in my past life. She too had cowered behind him, like a frightened fawn seeking refuge. Xinyan, he had said back then, eyes soft as he gazed at her, Chu Ruo's health is fragile. It's by sheer luck she's alive at all. I can't let her suffer anymore. The tenderness in his eyes had been dazzling, infinite. Why did the past and present mirror each other so eerily? The corners of my lips curved upward. My cursed entanglement with this woman, it seemed, was destined never to be severed. I rose, smiling faintly. Taoist Chu, there are a few words I wish to speak with you alone. Shall we talk in the main hall? His expression grew solemn. He glanced back at Chu Ruo's innocent eyes before finally nodding a single word. The candles in the hall flickered as we spoke for over half an hour. By the end, Chu Ye's gaze had grown heavy. In the distance, Chu Ruo was waiting for him by the lotus pond. The petite girl smiled sweetly, dimples softening her face, her beauty bright as she trotted toward him. Brother, are you done talking with sister? Chu Ruo is hungry. She looked so harmless, like a snow-white rabbit. Mne Chu Yi patted her head, though his expression was grave. Then he turned back to me. Chu Ruo is still young. I'll leave her here at the scholar's residence. Please take care of her for me, Miss Shen. Within 3 months, I'll return with the antidote for serpent venom. He looked down once more at her face, dazed and tender. By then, my Chu Ruo will be fine. For 5 days after Chu Ye's departure, Chu Ruo never once stepped out of her room. I had the maids deliver 3 meals a day at the proper times, and did nothing more. On the 6th day, she finally appeared. What was that saying again? Ah yes, a shameless woman always talks the loudest. She was suddenly excessively warm toward me, completely unlike our first meeting. I wasn't surprised in the least, her acting skills had always been flawless. Out of respect for her as Chu Ye's sister, my mother treated her courteously. But Chu Ruo didn't know where to stop, she often intruded into my mother's courtyard, disturbing her peace. The next time she came, I intercepted her at the gate. She burst into tears. Sister Yen, I only wish to help take care of Madam. No need, I cut her off sharply. I'll care for my mother myself. Her little face went pale. After that, she stopped approaching my mother's quarters altogether. 2 months after Chu Ye's departure, perhaps feeling more at ease with me, Chu Ruo invited me to a temple in the outskirts to pray. Sister Yen, she said sweetly, I heard several children in the capital have gone missing. No one knows if it's humans or demons causing trouble. Why don't we go to Faming Temple to pray for peace? I looked at her silently. She had said the exact same words in my past life. Back then, I was pregnant and deeply moved by thoughts of my own mother's hardship. I hadn't thought much of it and agreed, and that decision had led directly to everything that followed. This time, I had no patience to play her little games. I refused outright. She said nothing more and never mentioned it again. 3 days later, at dusk, I found a man half dead from starvation outside the side gate, 2 years earlier than he'd appeared in my previous life. I had servants carry him in and care for him, feeding him with my own hands. He was so obedient. After eating his fill, he curled up at my feet, seeking affection. Churua also came by, though she dared not approach. She merely stood outside the door with a gentle smile. Sister Yen, a man really likes you. I blinked, a flicker of surprise rising within me. I turned toward her, lips curving slightly. I never told anyone I planned to name him a man. I didn't expect you to guess what I was thinking. Isn't that just a little too coincidental? The smile on her lips slowly faded. In that brief moment our eyes met, they turned pitch black, and her mouth curved into a chilling, unnatural grin. Ah. I've been found out. I stood up and quietly closed the door. Gripping her chin firmly, I traced a finger across the corners of that twisted smile, my voice icy enough to freeze marrow. I hate this smile the most. It's hideous. Under the command of my spirit, Churua's body was immobilized. Yet she showed no fear, only stared straight into my eyes and sneered. I've already set the board near the capital, Shinyen. This life of yours is destined to be a dead pawn in my hands. She laughed maniacally after that. My expression didn't change. I raised my hand and struck the back of her neck, knocking her unconscious. Not necessarily. You may hold the black piece, I murmured coldly, but I have the white. Let's see who laughs last. I stared down at her collapsed form and ordered Hong Lu to bind her tightly and guard her closely. No one was to approach her. Then I would wait for Chu Yi to return, and separate her soul. That day, in the hall, I told Chu Yi everything Churua had done in my past life. Combined with all that had happened recently, the pieces formed a picture, one that felt deeply wrong. First, those twin black serpents had been cultivating deep in the mountains. Why did they suddenly appear in the capital, and why attack me first? Second, in this life, I had not chosen Tao Tang as my husband. Everything about the future had shifted. So why did the offspring of those serpents choose him as their human vessel, and why provoke me again? A frail scholar like him couldn't possibly compare to a strong, able-bodied man. Other than Chu Yi, who told the serpent demon about the grudge between Tao Tang and me. Third, a man's lingering spirit had revealed that in my past life, Chu Rua secretly colluded with the fox demon, and was eventually devoured by it. In this life, she had chosen to work with serpent demons instead. Could it be that she too had been reborn? Finally, the golden talisman. Chu Yi had said she once possessed one as well, likely given by the same old man. If my guess was right, she too carried 2 souls. One was the original, kind-hearted younger sister of the Chu family, the other, a malevolent soul born of snake venom's corruption. Chu Yi was silent for a long time. Then he stared into the distance and shared a secret he had never spoken aloud. When Churua was born, he began quietly, she was a deformity, a single body with 2 heads. And both had consciousness. After giving birth, my mother bled to death. She took one look at the child and departed this world. My father held the baby with a storm of emotions in his eyes. When he touched the second head, it bit off his finger. He saw sharp fangs, eyes black as pitch, and a shriek that sounded nothing like a newborn's cry. It was the cry of a demon. To spare the world from calamity, he did the only thing he could, he took a blade and cut off that second head. But Chu Rua survived. She grew up seemingly normal. Until she was 15. That was when the snake venom took hold, and the other soul returned. Chu Ye's voice trailed off into silence. When he finally spoke again, anguish burned in his eyes. After I killed the serpent demon, she ran into my arms and wept. Her face, her body, nothing had changed since 3 years ago. That was when I knew, the one I killed back then, was the real Chu Rua. I deserve death. He stared down at his trembling hands, filled with self-loathing. I lowered my gaze and exhaled softly. Then give her peace. If that body continues harming others, and then, more horror arrived. In the past few days, 11 children had gone missing in the capital. My instincts screamed one truth. This was all connected to Chu Rua. I went to question her, but she only laughed. It was a mad, trembling laughter that left her gasping for breath. Just as I turned to leave, her voice rang out again. The mad goddess of Guanxue Hall will tell you. Then she turned away and resumed humming her eerie nursery rhyme. Half doubting, half fearing, I went alone to Guanxue Hall. The constable told me the goddess had been confined to a celestial chamber in the rear courtyard, and that no one dared go near her. One constable led me there but bolted the moment he opened the door, too frightened to stay. I steadied myself and stepped inside. The once radiant priestess now sat filthy and tattered in a shadowy corner, muttering endlessly. 81 souls. I frowned. She had lost 2 souls and 6 spirits, leaving only one of each. No wonder her mind was shattered. Seeing no one else around, I recited an incantation and used spirit summoning techniques to recall her scattered souls. Once they rejoined, her eyes sharpened and she rose unsteadily to her feet. Then her voice rang out, clearer, louder, and chilling. 8 Lord's Temple, sacrifice 11 children, 81 souls, flesh and blood of the parents as the path, and the veil between yin and yang can be pierced. Xin Yan, can you still stop it? Then she burst into manic laughter, and collapsed unconscious. I stood there, struck as though by lightning. This was bad. Chu Rua had deceived me. I raced back home. The chamber where she'd been imprisoned was empty. My parents were nowhere to be found. Hong Lu and the others lay collapsed on the ground. When they awoke, they remembered nothing, exactly as I had when Chu Rua struck me unconscious in the past. Her room was a wreck, blood smeared across the floor. On a shattered screen, written in blood, were 3 chilling characters. 8 Lord's Temple. I didn't know whose blood it was. I didn't care. I couldn't waste a moment, I had to leave the estate and rescue them. As I burst through the gates, I nearly collided with someone. Chu Yi stood before me, his robe covered in dust, wind-burned and exhausted, eyes shadowed with fatigue. He must not have rested in days. He lifted the pouch in his hand, smiling faintly. At last. I've obtained phoenix blood from the polar lands. But his smile faltered the instant he saw my face. His gaze shifted past me, to the chaos behind. Something's happened, hasn't it? I gave him a terse account of everything. His hand tightened around the pouch, and his eyes darkened. It's time, he said grimly. Time to take her away. Yes. It was time to end this. We rushed toward 8 Lord's Temple. It was only late afternoon. Yet the temple, usually alive with incense and devotees, now stood eerily deserted. The vast red gates yawned open, and beyond them stretched a darkness so heavy it seemed alive. A strange power pulsed within, beckoning to wandering souls. I almost stepped forward, almost succumbed to the lure, when Chu Ye's hand clamped down my wrist and held me back. Be careful, Chu Ye warned. Beneath this temple lie the remains of thousands of soldiers. The Yin energy is overwhelming. If you are lured by vengeful spirits, they will drag you into a Vichy hell, and once there, reincarnation is almost impossible. He inscribed a talisman for clarity of mind and pressed it into my palm, a shield against the demon's illusions. As we stepped into the main hall, the 8 once majestic guardian statues now glared with rolled-back eyes, their lips blackened, jagged fangs bared like fiends from the deepest hell. A chill ran through me. A faint shadow swayed behind a pillar. Chu Yi and I rushed forward, only to find it was a paper effigy shaped like the temple keeper. Someone had drawn eyes on it. The old saying echoed in my mind, add eyes to a paper man, and it gains a soul. Before we could speak, laughter rippled through the corridor. Chu Rua. Chu Ye's eyes sharpened. He muttered a spell, and a blue talisman shot out, binding Chu Rua as she tried to hide behind the innermost deity statue. But instead of fear, her grin widened. See. All of this is my masterpiece. Aren't these divine generals turned demons fascinating to look at? When we didn't respond, her laughter abruptly died. Her voice grew shrill, full of venom. I want all of humanity to see the disgusting faces of their so-called gods. They say the fates of mortals are written by heaven, but if I was born evil, how is that my fault? This is heaven's mistake, heaven is wrong. The more she spoke, the more hatred distorted her voice. Her body began turning into paper, and within moments she was no longer flesh but a life-sized paper doll, identical to the temple keeper's effigy. Then she slipped away into the courtyard. Half her face now was parchment, the eyes on the paper half and the human half didn't even move in sync. Finally, she fixed her mismatched gaze on Chu Yi, and a twisted smile crept over the living side of her face. Brother, do you know how father died? I turned toward Chu Yi. His eyes trembled, shadows surging beneath his composure. That night, I took over Chu Rua's body, she whispered. I wrapped thorned ropes around his neck and slowly dragged him down, just as he once swung the blade and severed my head without a shred of hesitation. The difference is, she laughed, voice cracking, he deserved to die. And I still live. Her cackling echoed as her body melted into the darkness. I started forward, but Chu Yi stopped me. She's woven a barrier around this place. Your parents, they're probably still in the 8 Generals' temple. He bit his finger, painting blood-red runes and casting them toward the 8 directions. One of them pulsed beneath the southeastern statue. A moment later, the stone idol rumbled aside, revealing a hidden tunnel. I'll chase after Chu Rua. You go save them, he said, inscribing a protection charm over me. As he turned to leave, he paused at the entrance. Be careful. I pressed my lips together and nodded with a faint smile. This might be the last time we saw each other. Take care, Daoist Chu. The deeper I descended into the underground passage, the heavier the netherworld aura became. I steadied my breathing and hurried on, stepping through a half-height stone door into a chamber swallowed in darkness. I swallowed my final pill and began chanting. 1 soul, 2, 3, countless spirits shimmered into view, illuminating the cavern. These must be the soldiers who had fallen 100 years ago. In the center of the room sat 11 large eggs, faint cries of infants echoing from within. The missing children. My brow furrowed. I was about to move forward when a massive shadow, thick and heavy as a tree trunk, lunged at me. I summoned the spirits to block it, and as the darkness lifted, a familiar face emerged. Tao Tang. But now, his body was no longer human. Scales glistened green across his skin, a serpent's tail coiled beneath him, and his once gentle eyes burned with hatred. Xinyan, so you've finally come to seek death yourself. I staggered back several steps, narrowly dodging the creature's strike. Under the faint light, I forced myself to look again, to be certain. The half-human, half-serpent before me was none other than Tao Tang. When I didn't speak, he slithered over to the nest of eggs, coiling his long, scaly tail protectively around them. A sneer tugged at his lips. Surprised, are you? Chu Rua said that you and I bore hatred from our past lives. That's why the serpent demon took interest in me this time. If she hadn't fed me serpent gall as I lay dying, I'd have been long dead. Xinyan, I waited for you with true affection, yet you caused me to become like this. Doesn't your heart feel even a shred of guilt? True affection. Guilt. I laughed. Laughed until my whole body trembled. Laughed until I could barely breathe. Laughed the way Chu Rua used to, manic and broken. You still have the gall to speak of true affection. I met his eyes squarely, unflinching before the monstrous form he had become. In our past life, you offered me to the fox demon for Chu Rua's sake. Do you have any idea what I endured before I died? My child, my daughter, had only just formed, and she was devoured alive. She had done nothing wrong. Nothing. His gaze faltered for a brief moment, but his face remained unchanged. It was just a lump of flesh. No matter how he thrashed, he couldn't break free. His tail lashed wildly, but it was useless against the spirits. Then a long-tongued female ghost crawled onto his body, her face a mask of sorrow. Tao Tang, why did you abandon me? Have you forgotten our vows, our tender nights together? Terror flickered in Tao Tang's eyes. Yes. She was the daughter of Minister Liu, the woman he had publicly humiliated. Unwed yet carrying his child, she had been discarded like refuse. Unable to bear the ridicule, she had hanged herself, 2 months pregnant. And that unborn child, it had a soul. Now, mother and child had returned as spirits, their resentment anchored firmly in the mortal realm. Tao Tang, look, our child is born. As she spoke, her belly swelled grotesquely, then burst open, and a sharp-toothed infant drooled hungrily as it stared at him. Daddy. I'm hungry. Tao Tang screamed, horror twisting his face. His eyes found mine, pleading in desperation. Xin Yan. Xin Yan, save me. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Just a lump of flesh, I echoed, my voice icy. Why so stingy now? I turned and walked away, just as he had walked away from me in our past life. Behind me, his screams rose in pitch, echoing with unbearable agony, until they faded into silence. He was dead. But I did not feel the savage satisfaction I had imagined. Only a strange, profound calm. Heaven, after all, is just. The hatchlings in those eggs were vacant, their souls dulled, waiting for Chu Yi to arrive and break the serpent's curse. I pressed on, deeper into the lair. When I found my parents, their breathing was shallow. Red cords were tied around their wrists, leading toward an ancient, shadowed well. Temple of the 8 Sovereigns. Sacrifice 11 children. 81 souls. The blood of kin is the path, and the gates between yin and yang shall open. Chu Rua. Was your purpose in disrupting the realms of the living and the dead nothing more than to prove how evil you could be? But you forgot one truth, heaven's will is humanity's will. Fate may be decreed by the heavens, but what kind of person we become and what path we walk, that is ours to choose. Just like me. On the night the fox demon died, the old man who recorded the book of fate, the same who gave me the golden talisman, appeared before me again. He told me that both Chu Rua and I were souls not written in the book of fate, already beyond the 6 realms of reincarnation. Whether we would become human or fall into demonhood depended on a single thought. But she and I were not the same. She was born of evil, and I was born because of her evil. Yet I am not alone. A man and my unborn child are always beside me, guarding me, keeping me from falling into darkness. Xin Yan had always been loved by her parents since childhood. Though she once trusted the wrong man and died a wretched death, the people she loved were still here, and the hatred buried deep in her heart had been avenged. That was enough. There was no place for you in the book of fate, said the old man who kept the ledger of destinies. But I am willing to rewrite it for you, to make you a soul anew. He handed me a small dagger. This is a soul-severing blade. When someone finds phoenix blood, you can separate from this body and step onto the path of reincarnation. Then, the bridge between yin and yang will once again be sealed. My thoughts returned to the present. I took the soul-severing blade and the golden talisman, then drew the phoenix blood Chu Yi had given me and let a single drop fall upon the talisman. The moment the talisman flared with light, illuminating the pitch-black cave, I walked to my parents' side and gently touched their cheeks, tears welling in my eyes. Father, mother, your daughter is going to reincarnate. If fate allows, I will beg the heavens to let me become your daughter once more. Perhaps they could feel me, for tears slipped from the corners of their eyes as well. I smiled and wiped them away. Don't be afraid. Shan Yen is still here. She will stay and care for you, keeping you safe and healthy for the rest of your days." With those words, I plunged the soul-severing blade straight into my heart. Warm blood spilled forth, and my consciousness slowly tore free. I watched myself collapse to the ground. A man and my unborn child drifted into my embrace. They wanted to follow me. I smiled and agreed. Guided by the glowing talisman, we floated toward the ancient well and leapt in, using my purine fate to carry all the souls fleeing from the underworld back into the realm of the dead. And with that, the bridge between yin and yang was sealed once more. Side story, Shan Yen. I slept for a very long time. When I awoke, I was lying in a bed both strange and familiar. Hong Lu was gently applying medicine to my wound, saying that a scar would remain. While she went to fetch water, I raised my hand and looked at my palm. It hurt sharply, yet I couldn't remember how I had been injured. Fragments of memory, hazy and scattered, began to surface. They didn't feel like mine. And yet, some shards were mine. In a pitch-black place, I had fallen. Before losing consciousness, I saw a woman who looked exactly like me leap into a well. I heard her voice. It was as if she were speaking to me. Live on. Live well. Father and mother had slept for days as well, though thankfully they were unharmed. A Taoist priest named Shu had saved us, though he said little of what had happened, only that we should do good deeds, accumulate virtue and blessings, for her. Her. Who was she? I asked Hong Lu, and she told me everything that had happened after I threw the bridal ball. She said I was different, and yet unchanged. Perhaps I was still me, and yet not me at all. Before leaving, Taoist Chu gave me a charred copper coin. Keep this as a memento, Miss Shin. If you ever need help, send this to Mount Longhu. Chu will come. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but the way he looked at me was as if he were looking at someone else. I didn't care. A voice deep within me kept whispering, "You must live well. Take care of father and mother. Stay healthy. Live a full life." I will. Thank you. Shan Yen. Side story, Chu Yi. The moment I used phoenix blood to sever Rua's soul from her body, she wept. I only wanted to live. Why does no one allow me that? Heart aching, I turned my face away. This was heaven's decree. I was only a mortal man, powerless to change it. She looked at me and smiled, just as Rua had smiled years ago when she died in my arms, a smile of release, of peace. If there is a next life, she said softly, I do not wish to be human again. I would rather be a cloud, a flower, a stone, anything that has nothing to do with good or evil. With that, she left Rua's body, floating upward into the air, and vanished. The night wind was cold. I held Rua's decaying body close, overcome by sorrow. When I returned to the Temple of Eight Lords, I found that Shan Yen too had separated from her body, and disappeared. She had used her purine essence to seal the bridge between the worlds of yin and yang. No wonder she had asked me for phoenix blood, so that she could. I drew a deep breath, moisture stinging my eyes. Chu Yi, you have cultivated Taoist arts for over 10 years, and yet your righteousness does not measure up to that of a single woman. After leaving the capital, I returned to Yutu village. I buried 6 of my 7 coins with Rua's remains, keeping only 1 for myself, in the hope that I might begin again. Years later, I returned to Mount Longhu, seeking my master's guidance, hoping he might point out where I had gone wrong. The old man was seated on a boulder by the cliff. When he saw me, he sighed deeply before speaking. Your younger sister was once a celestial maiden. For stealing and swallowing an elixir she could not refine, she was born with 2 heads. Cast down into the mortal world, she lived the life you knew. Years ago, she returned to the heavens to cultivate anew. As for the extra soul that appeared, it too has transformed into flower and grass, just as it wished. Those who were innocent in all this have been reborn. Everything that happened stems from karmic debts of past lives. Alas, such is their fate. And Xin Yan. I couldn't help but ask. She was the soul born of another's life. How could she enter the cycle of reincarnation? Xin Yan. My master suddenly chuckled, pointing toward a small farmhouse at the foot of the mountain. Go and see for yourself. A little girl was standing there, a small dog in her arms, her eyes clear and bright, untouched by the burdens of the world. The moment I saw her face, I knew. It was her. A long breath escaped my chest, the heavy stone that had weighed me down for years finally lifted. Yes, I said with a faint smile. But I am a useless Taoist, only a third coin heavenly master. I raised the string of coins at my waist and asked, little girl, what's your name? She pressed her lips together and said nothing, hugging the dog as she pushed open the gate. I thought she was ignoring me, but then she turned back, a soft smile curving her lips. You promised to bring back a snakeskin pouch, didn't you, Taoist Chu? Have you forgotten? My eyes widened. And then, I laughed, freely, joyfully, from the depths of my heart. It was her. It was Xin Yan. The end.